Get comfortable with yourself. Don't try to be like anybody else. So many people try to be like somebody else, and they're wasting their time.
So welcome. Today, I'm with John La Valle,
Thank
the
you, Pollyanna.
president,
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
president of.
Good to be here. It's good to be here. Thank you so much.
I'm so happy you're here. So you're the president of the Society of NLP, co-author of Persuasion Engineering, and master troubleshooter. Right? Is that the right
Yeah,
word?
something like that. The the fuck up fixer upper.
Oh, there you go. That's a better one.
The
And
new
so,
title.
yeah, good title. And you've been in the business world, troubleshooting, right? Fixing things around for tinkering, right? With problems for a long, long time.
Yeah, yeah. Most of my experience is in business. I used to see people privately one-on-one, and I got tired of that after a little while. But yeah,
Wait,
most of my
wait, wait.
background's in what's that?
No, are you saying that you used to see clients one on one, like hypnotize them?
Yeah,
Wow,
yeah,
that's awesome.
yeah. Both Kathleen and I. Yeah,
That's
yeah,
good.
yeah. You got to do that kind of thing if you're going to be doing training because you bring somebody up in front of the room and do a demonstration. You better be able to pull it off.
That's
You have to. Yeah, you can't mess it up. So you get a lot of experience seeing people one on one. So we did that, both of us for a few years. That's all we did actually is one on one stuff. So
And
yeah,
how
yeah.
did you transition to business?
So, how much are you enjoying this episode? Imagine leveling up every week. Join Next Level Pro Institute, where our motto is practice, practice, practice. This is the place where you will gain real tools, deeper skills, and a community that will accelerate your growth. I will see you there. Click on the link, and we'll see you soon.
Well, I was working in a company in manufacturing actually, and then I ended up actually did all the jobs in the company except for it was a big company, uh, except for finance and mark. I mean, what didn't I do? I didn't do accounting. I didn't work in the accounting department. I didn't work in the finance department, and I didn't work in their marketing department. But I worked everywhere else. I went I got experience in all the other departments, you know, and I probably about 14, 15 years. So then I decided it was time to go out on my own, but I also ended up in human resources, which was really odd because I don't belong in human resources. I'm not your typical human resource person, if you know what I mean. But I'm glad I went and did that because there were a lot of things I learned about what happens in those departments, with working with the people who have people problems and things like that. And that's where I actually tripped over NLP. I wasn't looking for anything special. I was I was a training manager, and I joined the ASTD, American Society for Training and Development, and had all these brochures coming past my desk, that kind of thing. And most of them went into the circular file on the floor, and one came by one day, and there it was. It said, and it was just a little brochure. It wasn't anything big. And it said Neuro-Linguistic Programming. And the first thing I thought was, that's a mouthful. I wonder what this is. But what I also saw in there was about language and things. And I always enjoyed language, even when I was a kid in school. I loved diagramming sentences. Yeah, I was one of those. But so I said, I'm going to go to this. It was a one-day teaser, actually. So I went and checked it out, went to the one-day teaser. And within the first, I'm going to say 15, 20 minutes, I said, oh, my gosh, this is good stuff. This is really, really good stuff. I've been to a lot of other places checking out, different trainings and stuff like that because became the training guy, But yeah, I tripped on NLP, man. I said, oh, whoa, this stuff really works. And I saw some excellent demonstrations on that one day, that the person was running that. So I bought all the books that were out at that time. That had to be early 80s, I don't even know the year, 80, could have been 82. I don't know, maybe 81. And started reading the books. And then I decided I was going to go learn NLP. So that's what I did. When I transitioned from the company, I waited for a while because they were paying for all my training. So they didn't want me to leave. A couple of times, the boss in HR, I remember he took me out to lunch after a year of working and working for him. He said, "Come on, let's go to lunch. I got to do your performance appraisal. It's time for your performance appraisal." And I said, "Sure, come on, we'll go." So we go out to lunch, and he says to me, people didn't like him so much. He had a reputation in the company. He first of all, he came in on a merger and acquisition, but he'd been with the world headquarters company for like 35 years. His nickname was the Hatchet Man. Right. That's him. His job was to cut heads and
Wow.
let people go. So that's what was happening. We were going through merger and acquisition and all this stuff, and he interviewed all of us, actually two companies worth of all of us. And he kept me and kept a few others, of course. So we go out for my first year, and he says, this was great because let me tell you what he said to me first of all in the interview, because I was already doing NLP at this time. I was learning about it. I was using it in meetings, things like that. So he comes in. When he first showed up on the first day, he got us all in a big room, and he said, "Hi, I'm your new boss." And he told us his name. And he said, "And tomorrow, each one of you has a half-hour meeting with me. You're going to get to decide, and I'm going to get to decide if you're staying or if you're going."
In 30 minutes.
A 30-minute interview.
Wow.
He worked in human resources for 35 years at world headquarters. He can get all our files. So he could easily have all the information about records and stuff like that, performance appraisals, all this stuff, So anyway, and I was first. So he said, you're at 7. Then he went around the room. You're 7. You're at 7:30. 8:30. And I went around the room. And then he said, "I'll see you all tomorrow," and went home. Didn't stick around. Some of the people are crying. We're going to get fired. All this stuff. And they came to me and they said, "You're first." I said, "Yeah." They said, "Wow, you worried?" I said, "No, I'm not worried." They said, "Well, you can lose your job." I said, "So what? I was looking for one when I came here. I'll be looking for one when I leave. I mean, why sweat it out? I've been here a long time, so I can make a change. It's all right." Anyway, so he comes. I get there early the next day because I beat traffic and stuff. And he shows up, and I'm sitting there, and he goes, "Oh, you're early." I said, "Yeah." He said, "Want to get started?" I said, "Sure, come on, let's go." He said, "Come on, let's go in the conference room." We go in the conference room, and he says to me, he said, "First of all, let me tell you a couple of things." He said, "I hear a lot of good things about you, but I don't know that I'll be keeping you." And I said, "That's okay." He said, "What?" I said, "That's okay." And he said, "It is?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Why is that?" I said, "Well, I haven't heard a lot of good things about you. So I'm not sure." This is what I said to the guy. And I said, "So I'm not sure I want to stay. So where are you taking this ship anyway? I haven't heard good things about you. We hear rumors." He said, "Okay, well," he said, "this is going to be an interesting meeting, isn't it?" I said, "It already has been, hasn't it?" So I learned all of this, how to respond and ask questions back in my NLP classes. So then he said to me, he said, "Well, let me ask you something." I said, "Sure, go." He said, and this is when I knew he was going to keep me. He had a little grin on his face. He liked that. It wasn't your typical stupid question, stupid answer thing, So, and that's another thing. I noticed he grinned. He had a little grin on the side of his mouth, a little bit, So he said, "If I were to keep you," that's when I knew. I said, I'm staying, so I don't care, He said, "If I were to keep you, what would I have to do to manage you?" And I said, "Well, let me ask you something. What do you truly value in the people that you like working for you?" And he told me.
Mm-hmm.
He said, I don't want to manage them. whatever they do has to deliver something to the bottom line. I'm not into people wasting money, And then he rattled off a few other things. And then he said, "Now tell me about yourself." I said, "Well, first of all, you don't have to manage me. I do everything on my own, And I told you, let me be really honest with you, though. You better check up on me every few weeks. Just stick your head in my office and make sure that, because I'm the training guy. So sometimes we do really crazy shit, have people flying around in the rooms and stuff and things like this. You never know." He said, "I understand." I said, "So every couple of weeks, stick your head in my office and say, 'How you doing?'" It's okay. And he kept me.
Nice.
So, but all of those things were based on what I learned in language, and all that stuff. So we go out to the lunch for my year later performance appraisal thing. And he said, "Come on, let's go out for lunch." And the first thing I thought was, now I'm going to get fired, because usually they take you out to lunch. They fire you at lunchtime. They don't let you go back to the office. And that way you're not in the building when they fire you. You can't go yelling. A lot of companies do that.
I didn't know.
That's all right. Okay. So, and and some people, when they get fired, they go yelling and screaming. They're making a lot of noise in the office. They don't need that. So I said, "Okay, he's taking me out to lunch. I don't know. Maybe he's going to fire me. I don't know."
Breaking up with me in public.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. We don't ghost people anymore like that. We don't. It's totally different. So anyway, so he said to me, he said, "Okay." He orders a couple martinis. And I wasn't drinking, So I ordered a Diet Coke or something. I might have ordered a ginger ale, or I really don't remember. And he said to me, "Okay, so tell you what, let's the drinks are here." He started drinking his drink. He said, let's place our order and then we'll start the interview." I said, "Sure." He said, "Because this is a good place, but it's going to take him a while." And then, go ahead. We ordered. And he says to me, "So let's start your interview." I said, "Your performance appraisal." I said, "Go ahead." He said, "How am I doing?" I said, "What?" He said, "How am I doing?" I said, "Wait a minute. How are you doing?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "I thought this was my performance appraisal." He said, "It is." "So how am I doing?" I said, "You're doing great. You stick your head in my office every few weeks and make sure I'm not doing stupid shit. Right? You're checking up on the seminars I'm doing, blah, 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 yak, blah, 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 blah." I said, "You're doing a great job. Congratulations." He said, "Good. You are too. Let's have a drink." Boom. He said, "I'll put you in for a raise," yada, 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 yada. So, but then he did say to me at that time, he said, "So let me ask you a question. What do you want to be when you grow up?" That was always my favorite question to ask people too. And I said, "Well, I don't know." I said, "Sooner or later, I'm probably going to have to leave and go out and be a consultant. I want to go out and do something different, consulting." He said, "I thought so." He said, "How can I help you?" I said, "What?" Excuse me? He said, "How can I help you?" I said, "Well, listen, if you're asking to get rid of me, then, I'll start looking for another job or something." He said, No. I don't want to lose you. I want to keep you. So what can I do to help you to go out and be a consultant one day?" He said, you can quit cold turkey." I said, "Yeah, I know I could do that." He said, "But I don't suggest it." I said, "No, I don't either. My son was just born. Actually, John wasn't born just yet at that time." And I said, "You got to go out and, meet companies, do it, So he said, "Well, so how can I help you?" I said, "I don't know." I said, I'll let you know." He said, "Okay." And then the next year, same thing. This went on for a couple of years like this with him. And it finally came time where I thought, I'm gonna have to leave here soon. There's a saying well, it depends on how smart your bosses are. And I tell people that in my entire career, I got along with most people. There were some people I didn't get along with at all. But I probably had maybe 4 or 5, maybe 5 or 6 executives that liked me. I don't even know why they liked me, to tell you the truth. I should rephrase a little bit. I'm from New Jersey, So it's not like we don't have an attitude or anything. And I tell people, it's not that we have an attitude, it's that we have all of them. That's the problem. And we're pretty good at picking and choosing which ones to use and when. whether it's an attitude with a great sense of humor, get people to laugh, piss them off if you want, so that way you get away. They want to get away from you, all those things. I don't use those too often. But I got to that point because one of the bosses I had, who was a great guy, this guy was great. I learned so much from this guy because, he was really good. He was just a great boss, and not because he was easy on me either. He was tough. They were all tough. All the ones that liked me were tough with me. Laval, what happened? Get in the office. Go to the board. Draw it out. Tell me what you did. Blah, blah, blah. Show me. Blah, blah, blah. What'd you learn from this? Yak, yak, yak. You dumbass. What the fuck's the matter with you? All these things. So, but he made one comment because he asked me a long time ago when I became the training manager. He said, let me ask you a question. He said, do you know when it's going to come time for you to have to leave? Because I was doing training before, but I was training people in the manufacturing plants, teaching them how to run the machines and all these things. Now, this was different. This was, head stuff, And so he said, do you know when it's going to come time to leave? I said, no, I don't know. He said, well, you have to figure it out. And he made two comments. He made two comments to me. I talk about him, and I do mention his name sometimes in seminars. His name is Bill. And Bill said to me two things. He said, whatever you do, because you got a lot of potential, you can be great. But I'm going to tell you right now, don't be too great. Be really, really good, but you don't want to be too good. I said, why is that? He said, because people will resent you. And I said, huh. I said, and then what happens? He said, then they won't trust you. That's the craziest thing. He said, now, so you can't afford to do that and be in the training business. Plus, you're going to have a lot of private information about people because you're in human resources. So you have access to their files and all this other stuff. I said, oh, okay. So he said, so that's number one. I know you can be really, you can be great, really great. Don't be too great. He said, that's number one. And the other part of that is because you can't be a prophet in your own land. So you're going to get to a point where people are going to think, who does this guy think he is? So he said, you keep those two things in mind. And then you get to decide, you get to choose when you want to leave and go out and do what you want to do. He said, but I fully appreciate that. You can go out and be a consultant. I'm not worried. You can do that. You just don't have all the resources right now. You don't have contacts. You don't have, all this stuff. So I said, okay. That went on for a while. He ended up leaving when the Hatchet Man came in. I like to use those names for them. He was a good guy. No, he was a good guy, and I got along with him. I always got my budget. And the only reason I always got my budget, and nobody else got their budget, I don't know if you've ever been to a budget meeting, but you get to go to a budget meeting and the boss says, how much you need to run your operation, your department next year. And then you go, I need $1 million or whatever it is, right? And then he goes, why? Why should I give you the $1 million? Now, the problem was all the other people were whining. Well, you didn't give me the $1 million last year I needed, and you gave me short, and I didn't get to finish this one project. This project really has to get finished up, blah, 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 whine. Right? And he'd get to me and he'd say, how much you need in your budget next year? And I go, give me $1 million. You go, why? I go, first of all the programs are self-managed. They're already well done. They're well set up. You don't have to manage a damn thing. 2, it's going to deliver profit to the bottom line. These programs. I repeated everything I said to him when he hired me. So I always got my budget.
Nice.
I always got my budget. And everybody else would come to me later and, how'd you get your budget? They usually cut the training budget. How come you got your money? I go, I don't know.
You knew.
Well, I knew, but what was I going to do? Because they didn't like the fact that I was learning NLP. They thought it was dangerous.
Oh,
when they found out I had been going and doing NLP training, they were like, oh no, listen, that's bad stuff, man. That's very manipulative. And I remember the one boss telling me, we don't manipulate people here. And I said, we don't? He said, no. I said, oh. I said, you're right. We manage them. That's called managing them. It's really funny, boss. They both start with an M, those words. I said, and I had to explain manipulation, of course, all that stuff. You're going from point A to point B. Come on. So that's pretty much how and then I ended up going out on my own. But the best part of that leaving, because he still kept saying, he said, oh, I remember him asking me once, maybe this was 4 years in, I don't know, with the Hatchet Man. He said, how you doing building your business? I said, why, you want to get rid of me? He said, no, I want you to stay. I said, well, I'm doing pretty good. I said, but he said, what else can I do for you? I said, I need more time. I need more time off to take off. Mm-hmm. He said, what do you mean? I said, well, I'm still going out and meeting companies and meeting people and going to trade shows and all this. And I used all my vacation last year, and I used all my free time, everything. And he looked at me, he put his glasses down like this. He said, you did what? I said, I used all my vacation, and I used my free time, and whatever free days I had, I used up to go out and work on my business. My wife was working, He said, oh. So let me tell you something. If I find out you're using your vacation and all your free days to build your business, I'm going to fire your ass. I said, well, why? He said, because I give you get that time to spend with your family. Mm-hmm. He said, not to go build your business. What's the matter with you? And I said, well, then what do I have to do? He said, you take what you need. You need time. Just take it. I'm not going to ask you. First of all, don't ask me, can I take off tomorrow? I don't want to know. Don't come and ask me for that. You just do what you got to do. And if I see you're not in your office, and I don't care if it's for a full week, then I'm not going to ask you where you were. The only thing you have to know is you can't screw up on this job. If you got a program scheduled, you got to be here. You can't forget and not run the seminar, but there's people waiting in a seminar room. I mean, I said, no, I would never, I couldn't even think about doing that. He said, so, because if people start coming to me because they need something and you're not here, and they go, where's La Valle? Where the hell's La Valle? What happened to him today? Then you and I will have a different problem. I said, okay, fair enough. So then it was time to leave after another year or so of that. And that's why I tell people, they say, well, how did you jump out? I said, you don't want to know this story because you're going to think, how can I do this?
That's very unique, right? The situation where you were.
And I still don't, well, I keep saying I still don't know why the guy liked me, but, I guess he liked the answers I gave him on the first day. So it came time to leave. So he says to me, let me ask you a question. I said, oh, listen, I'm going to leave. He said, when? I said, I'm going to leave the end of the year, at the end, last day of December, okay? He said, no. He said, wait, let's stay another month. I said, okay, why? He said, because then you get another 6 months of benefits. I said, oh, okay. He said, you got business lined up? I said, yeah, I got a business lined up. I've been able to save some money. My wife's working, so we're good. Mm-hmm. He said, I said, yeah, I got some business lined up. Probably good for about 6 months right now, and a couple other things after that, a couple of things here and there. He said, okay, I want to be your first big client. I said, what? He said, I want to be your first big client. I said, what does that mean? He said, I want you 1 week a month to continue doing all the training. Hire you in as a consultant. I said, okay, I'll take it. He said, how much? And he said, don't tell me by the hour and all that crap. Give me a monthly thing. Okay. I forget what the number I gave him. I said, I forget what it was. I said, this. He went, it's not enough. I said, what? He said, it's not enough. I said, okay. How about this much? And he goes, okay. I named another number. He said, that's better. I said, okay. He kept me going back and doing the training for another probably 2 or 3 years. Mm-hmm. Then the other thing was, because he said to me, he said, all these training manuals you developed? I said, yeah. He said, well, you remember that you signed a copyright and patent agreement, right? I said, yeah. He said, well, you know what that means, right? I said, yeah. Like if I invent a new paper clip while I'm working for the company owns the paper clip, and they own the patent thing, right? He said, right. I said, so where are we going with this? He says, those training manuals, they belong to the company. I said, oh. He says, so you can't take I know you got them on computer disks, so you can't take them with you because the company owns them. I said, okay, fair enough. He said, but I don't like that idea. He said, hold on. And he gets on a phone. He calls the company's 2 attorneys. Come down to my office. It occurred to me, John's leaving, and he created these training manuals. And, according to his patent and copyright agreement, the company owns the training manuals. But you know what? We are not in the training manual business. So I want you to sign John off and release all his training manuals to him.
Wow.
He's using them here anyway to train our people. So I want you to release them. And they said, well, hold on a second. Let's talk about this. He said, no, it's not a question. I'm telling you that release his training manuals. He was the vice president, by the way, of HR.
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't like, So that was great.
That's amazing.
And after that was even better, actually, because, I was doing that, doing the company trainings, and I was home on my first day on myself by, starting my business. Well, not starting, my first day, I'm there, I'm home. I'm in my office, thinking about what am I supposed to do today, and a friend of mine calls. And she said, what are you doing tomorrow? I said, I'm busy. Why? She goes, you're not busy tomorrow. I know you're not busy tomorrow. She goes, and we both went to the same consulting program. When somebody called and says, are you available next week or whatever, you say, no, I'm busy. Okay? That way, because if you say, yeah, sure, I'm busy, I got nothing to do tomorrow, then they got you, right? I said, oh. She goes, so what are you doing today anyway on your first day? I said, I'm sitting here home waiting for my secretary to bring my coffee. She goes, Kathleen's not bringing you your coffee. You're going to have to make your own coffee. I already know this. What are you doing tomorrow? You want to have lunch? And I said, business lunch or personal lunch? She goes, you want lunch or not? Don't give me a hard time. I said, okay, let's have lunch. So we go to have lunch. And we had lunch, and she said, I said, so she goes, you got business lined up? I said, yeah, I'm doing okay. I mean, she goes, well, I knew you were leaving. So I put a lot of money in my budget last year to bring you in to do some training for us this year. And I thought, oh my gosh. She goes, you ready? I said, yeah, sure. Why not? Then 2 days later, another friend called, said the same thing. Not the same money, but the same thing. I knew you were leaving. So last year I put money in my budget. And these are all people we networked with. We worked on teams together over the years, all those things. And in my first year of being on my own in my own business, I think I had about 12 days off.
Wow.
And that included traveling, by the way. I mean, I traveled. I got on airplanes and had to fly here and fly there and all this.
Doing all those trainings.
So yeah. I was very fortunate getting started.
Mm-hmm.
And some of it had to be skill because, I did work on teams and things and, managed people, I managed up to 70 people one time. So yeah, I know.
Yeah. And one thing that caught my attention is when you're talking about pricing and, like with, NLP practitioners or coaches and stuff, like that's one question that many times people say, like, how much do I price my sessions? How do I price this? How do I, put a value to the service that I'm giving? Like, do you have any words of advice on that, on how to start thinking about that?
Yeah, they should stop thinking about that. That's not the first thing to think about.
So what's the first thing?
The first thing they ought to be doing is to be able to get enough practice, right? Because, we tell people most things can be knocked out in a session.
Yes.
Now, even Richard will still see people as a follow-up, just to make sure. Because sometimes, you could do a quick thing with somebody and they can go back. When they leave, they can screw it up. Okay. So they first have to get comfortable with the fact that they can pull it off. Then they don't have to charge by the hour. Okay. Now they get to decide. I had a guy when I first started learning about consulting. What am I looking for? What do other consultants do, and how do they format their business and everything else? So I went to this. It was maybe a 2-day thing. This guy was doing beaucoup dollars, and we all go in there and we're all hot. We're gonna be consulting. We're going to go out and conquer the world. And he said, let me ask you guys all a question, and gals, who's ever, and there was maybe 30 people in the room. He wasn't into these big seminars either, kind of stuff. And he said, how much you worth? What do you think you're worth? $1 million a year, $3 million a year, $500,000. We're all shouting out numbers. And he got us all throw figures out. And then he looked at all of us like this, looked around the room. He said, you're worth what you're making. And we all wanted to cry, first of all. You're worth what you're making. So you got to think about these kind of things. You can't. Sometimes people overplan. They're going to plan to run their business, but then it comes down to running the business, starting to see people. Kathleen and I, we had trouble because we weren't seeing people we didn't have an office. We still don't have an office. We've never had an office. People say you travel internationally as a consultant. How come you don't have an office? I go, because when I'm in my office, I'm not making money. Why do I want to have an office to spend money so you can come and talk to me? No, we're not doing that. No, forget it. I'm not going to have an office. Then what? I got to get up, go to work, to the office? No. Forget it. No. So we had two good friends. One was a chiropractor, and a lot of chiropractors all have a spare room because they have massage people want to come in and they'll rent the room for an hour, because they don't have an office. Okay, so our guy, he was a great guy. He liked us so much because we were also working a lot of times during the week doing trainings. But we could see people on a weekend. He'd give us a key to the office and the code for the alarm. He'd say, just don't worry, but just call me one day when you got carte blanche with me. I love you guys. It's okay. And then we had another guy in case we couldn't get to that office. This one's great. This guy was a dentist.
Oh.
But he only had like his office. He had a couple of dentists, but they had their own offices. And then all these examination rooms. So if we had to see somebody, we'd put them in a dentist chair.
Oh my God. Well, that's comfortable.
Yeah. Except for us, we're sitting on the dentist stool thing,
Yeah.
with wheels on it. But we said, okay, have a seat, and they look at us like we were crazy, Put them back a little bit, sit them back, let them be. Listen, we want you to be relaxed, This was very early on when we started doing this. But we thought, well, what the hey, and we pay these guys some money to have for using their room.
Yeah.
So my idea is, how much should I charge? That's the problem is that they start thinking that how much should they charge means they have a question about their competency. They have a question about their own competency. Now I understand that. Believe me when I tell you that. I mean, I tell the one where my first real consulting thing was pre-set up by someone because their boss he was interested in somebody who could help it was a manufacturing thing. He had a team of, his team of manufacturing people, managers and supervisors. And then, so that person said, I got somebody. He's a great guy. He knows what he's doing. Good with people, yada, yada, yada. So I went to that thing that I tell this in the trainer training. Sometimes people ask, so you probably heard this at any rate. And I said, I was leaving the house and I had my briefcase, not much in it, index cards and a couple of pencils and pens, and I don't even have a calculator was in there. And I was leaving the house, and Kathleen said, I said, honey, I'll see you later. I'm going to that meeting, see if I can get this contract down. She goes, okay. And she said, how much are you going to charge? I said, I don't know. She goes, close that door. So you're not going anywhere unless you have a price in your mind. And I said, well, yeah, I understand that. She goes, how much? Can you come up with a number? I said, well, I don't know. I said, well, Charlie, I have another consultant friend, Charlie, and that was his name. I said, well, Charlie's a consultant. Charlie's got a PhD. I don't have a PhD. I said, but Charlie's good. So I know what? And Charlie, and this was in the early 80s, maybe the middle 80s. I said, Charlie gets 600 a day. So I said, I'm going to charge 600 a day. She goes, okay, good. You have a number in your mind. That's all I needed. I don't care how the number is. At least know you have a number. Okay. I said, okay. And I'm driving. I got about an hour, maybe not even an hour, close to that. And I'm driving and I'm thinking 600. Hey, Charlie is really good, but you know what? This is a manufacturing thing. Charlie can't pull anything off in a manufacturing bunch of guys. They're a bunch of animals. They're worse than truck drivers, some of them. I said, so the hell with it. No, I'm giving myself a raise, 800. Talking to myself in the car. And I think about that, go another probably few minutes, and I go, 900, the hell with it, 900. So I already gave myself a 50% raise, right? I don't like the submodalities of 900, the pictures. I didn't like the way the picture looked with 900. I said, I don't like that. It's too dingy looking. I'm going to add a zero. I'm going to knock the 9 off, make it a 1 and add a zero. $1,000 a day. I'm a $1,000 a day consultant. Man, I'm flying. Get to the guy's office. By the time I get to this guy's office, I'm at 1,200. I talk myself into making 1,200. Okay. I go up to his office. I see his PA, personal secretary, personal assistant, whatever. Hand her my card. Hi, I'm here to see so-and-so. And she says, I'm really sorry. He got tied up in a meeting. He said, but can you, if you don't mind waiting, he'll probably be about another 20 minutes or so, whatever. And it was like a cup of coffee, all that stuff. And I said, I'm good. I'll just have a seat and wait. But I got annoyed about that. I think, who the hell is this guy? He makes an appointment. So what if he's a vice president? He makes an appointment with me, and he gets tied up in a meeting, and I'm here. The hell with that 1,400. That's it. 14. This is in my head. 1,400. That's it. 14. So he shows up. Says, I'm really sorry. I got tied up a little bit. I said, it's okay. In my mind, I'm going, you're not as sorry as you're going to be when you hear how much I'm charging. In my mind, I'm doing all this in my head, talking myself into this. We go in, we chat. He happened to have some NLP books on his bookshelf. And he caught me looking because I saw him and went. And he said, what, one of the books over to catch your attention? See, they got wizards on it or something like that. And he said, oh, those are NLP books. I said, oh, yeah. I said, he said, you know all about NLP? And I'll never forget his question. He said, do you know all about NLP? And I said, no, I don't know all about NLP. And he said, okay, I'll tell you what, we'll chat more. He said, all right, you know what, I like you. I'm going to give you a shot. We're going to go, I'm taking my guys and gals, my whole team, down to the breakers in Florida. I don't know if you ever know where the breakers is. I think the rooms were $600 or $800 a night, one of those. He said, fly down first class, no problem. He said, I only want you for one day, but you're welcome to stay the entire week if you want. Do some socializing with the guys, but, and I'm going to tell you what the deal is. I'll give you one day. Show me what you can do with my guys. I'm really interested in how you can get along with them and actually get them to do something. Mm-hmm. And if you can do that, I got a lot of business here for you. I said, okay. He said, what's your rate? What's your daily rate? What was it, 14 before?
Yeah, 14. You said 14. Yeah.
I said 1,500 a day. I don't even know where that came from. I think Richard was behind me going, Add another 100, LaValle. What's the matter with you? I don't know. I said 1,500 a day. This guy says to me, that's all? I'm not slow. I'm really not that slow. And I said, well, that's for the first time you use me. It's like an audition. He said, how much is it after that? I don't know where this number came from. I said 2,500. Got blocked out here. Hang on.
Oh, I can see you.
You can see me. I can't see you. There you are.
Oh no, I'm here.
I said, he said, how much is it after that? And I don't know where it came from. I said 2,500 a day. I don't even know where that came from. I was feeling good though, because I was getting the deal, you know.
Yeah.
I said 2,500 a day. And he said, that's better. He said, because that's what the really good, no, that's what he said. He said, because that's what the really good consultants are getting these days.
Yeah.
Now I have to tell you, first thing I thought was Charlie doesn't know this. Charlie's my friend now. You know, he's a friend. I said, Charlie doesn't know this. I got to talk to Charlie. So I went and did the gig. I didn't stay the whole week. I probably stayed an extra couple of days in there. You know, I don't play golf, you know, all that stuff. I don't go out and drink with the boys. You know, I don't go to the strip clubs, things like that, you know. When I sent him the invoice for the 1,500, he paid me to 25.
Oh, wow.
He changed the invoice, handed it to the accountant, changed it to 25, plus all the first class and everything else, all the stuff, you know, all that. And again, then I had more work than I could handle. So that's a very long answer to a very short question. How did you transition into business?
No, that's great. I mean, I love it. It's an amazing story. Yeah, about value and worth, and like setting up your own. Yeah, and the
Yeah,
thing
then I
is,
started doing things with.
you've gone through it, like all of us. I mean, at the beginning, this lack of confidence is there at the beginning, right? But the more you practice, the more you do,
Start
that
seeing. I tell people, just start seeing people.
exactly.
You know, don't make it a big deal. Don't make it like, don't go looking for the hard cases and the ones who want to fight with you, things like that. You know,
Yeah.
there's also, you can even practice basic simple rapport skills. You know, if you have any interaction with any other humans, you can use your voice. You can use you got the visual stuff. There's all kinds of things you can do.
Yep.
And get comfortable with yourself. And don't try to be like anybody else. I keep telling people that. There's so many people try to be like somebody else, and they're wasting their time because number one is a lot of people will notice that. They're trying to be like Tony Robbins, or something. I don't know. I'm making up names now. Although he exists, I didn't make that one up. And I started working with Richard years back. I don't know. I've known Richard probably since the early '80s somewhere, but I wasn't training with Richard. I was training with him in the seminars as a student, but nobody knew who I was because I was a student. And I was just in with the audience, and then until I did my trainer training. And actually I met him long before that, of course, but we hit it off. And I still don't know why we hit it off.
You're both from New Jersey, right?
Well, that's right. We both have New Jersey rapport. We're both from New Jersey. He didn't live here that long. Maybe he was here, 5, 6, 7 years, maybe, something like that. Yeah. But when
So that was 40 years ago that you guys met? How long was it? Like 40 years?
I'm going to say it must have been, well, let's say it had to be about 82, 81, 81 or 82, maybe 82. But I went to a 3-day, it wasn't called a personal enhancement, but I went to that because I wanted to meet him. Okay. I also wanted to meet John Grinder. I didn't get to meet John, unfortunately, for not John's fault. I wanted to go to, they were doing a sales seminar in the World Trade Center in New York. this is way long ago. But the guy who was booking the seminars didn't do a good job booking the seminars. Matter of fact, he was very uncooperative. I don't think even John knew about it, to tell you the truth. I know the person who was hosting it.
Mm-hmm.
So, but they never pulled the seminars off, But so Richard, so I was probably in my prac at that time with somebody else, not even Richard. And I went to this 3-day thing, and I was telling people in the class, in the practitioner class, I'm going to see Richard Bandler. They go, "You're nuts." I go, "Why am I nuts?" They go, "Because he's nuts." I go, well. I mean, how nuts could he be? The people bringing him in, I know the people bringing him in, they're not going to bring Richard in if he's really nuts. I mean, they said, "Listen, if you don't do what he tells you to do, he'll hit you in the head with a chair." I said, "Okay, well, he better be fast and he better be good, because I'll hit him back in the head with a chair. And I might be first. I don't know." Right? And they went, "Well, have a good time." I did. I had a great time. I took somebody from work with me because he had heard about NLP. I said, "I'm going to see Bandler. You want to go?" He said, "You're going to see Richard Bandler?" "No way." I said, "Yeah, way. Come on." So I brought him. There's only 25 people in the room.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Yeah. So and that was it was an excellent seminar. I don't know what else to say about that. Then the next time I ran into Richard was probably maybe a couple of years later, again in New Jersey. They kept hiding Richard, so we didn't know where he was. They did. They did. Yeah, they didn't want us to. They didn't want us going to see Richard. They wanted to bring Richard in.
Mm-hmm.
I went to a hypnosis seminar. It was with Richard and Robert Dilts, actually. And that was in New Jersey. So, and we hit it off again because he remembered me. And 500 people in the room. He walks back and he goes, "Oh yeah, hey, what are you doing here? You're back again." I said, "Yeah, well, I'm like a bad penny. I'm going to keep showing up. I don't know what to tell you." But we got along great, and then he invited us to go and staff,
Mm-hmm.
in California. So we started doing that, and rest is history.
Nice.
You know,
And you wrote a book together, Persuasion Engineering.
We wrote a book together, Persuasion Engineering.
How did that happen? Was the workshop first and then the book, or the book first and then the workshop, or?
I was already teaching sales training. I was doing trainings.
Mm-hmm.
I was training with at that time, it was the country's U.S., the second largest new home builder in the U.S. Okay. I'll even tell you who it is. I don't care. I don't, it was Ryland Homes.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was also doing sales training for some other companies. So I was already doing sales training, and I'm thinking, because even as I'm teaching, I'm picking up some new things. I thought I got to write a book. And so I saw Richard one time. I don't remember where we were. He said, "What's up? What's going on, John? What's up?" I said, "I'm going to write a book." He said, "On what?" I said, "Sales." He goes, "Well, tell you what, why don't we write it together?" Because he never put the sales book together himself, but he was doing a program called Patterns. What was it called? Patterns. I can't remember the name of the program. Patterns of influence. Patterns of something. And he said, "We'll write the book together." I said, "Good, no problem." That took a few years though, going back and forth. What do you got? What do you got? Here's I got this. How are we going to wind it out? But then we didn't know what to call it, and we were doing at that time. Then I was training with Richard. We were in Canada doing a sales seminar. Oh, that was Patterns of Influence or something. I think that's what it was. I forget. Something like that. And Richard said, he always did this to me. The doors are closed. Everybody's outside waiting. I'm on stage, going to welcome everybody in with Richard. I'm up there. And Richard looks at me and he goes, what is this seminar? What are we doing? He always does this. He goes, "What are we doing? What's this seminar called?" He said, "Actually, Richard, it's called it's called we got Patterns of Influence, and we also got Design Human Engineering. We threw some of that in here. So I tell you what, I got a new name." He goes, "What's that?" I go, "Persuasion Engineering."
Nice.
He goes, "Cool. Open the doors." And that's where the name came from. Now since then, I mean, I started adding more and more stuff and more and more stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It is really such a cool program. When the people come to that program and they catch it, they get it, because it doesn't do it. We're not categorizing people. We're not profiling people. We're listening and we're observing. Okay. And if they can pick up doing that, then they can model that. They can actually repeat that, but with the person who they're trying to sell something to. Okay. I tell them, listen, keep your PowerPoint stuff at home. Don't bring you can bring your brochures, but don't walk in and go, here, let's go over this. You got to get to know the person a little bit. This is sale. And even if in different countries, it's selling is very different, but I also know what works no matter what country it is, regardless of what they think, because they're all biased. Everybody's biased. They got all biases, especially when it comes to how to sell. No, you can't sell. You can't sell that way in Italy. You want to bet? You can't. That'll never work in Germany. I get it. Okay. But it does, because you just have to know how to do it. You got to know how to get to know the person. You have to know some of the customs too. If you go to Italy, forget the skills of what you would do with persuasion engineering. You still got to know they don't want to sit down and start talking business. That's not happening. Okay. You got to sit down. How you doing? How's the family? Let's talk about the food, the flowers, the weather, all this. And then when they're ready, they'll say, so what do we want to do here? And they open the door. Not in Germany. No. You go to Germany, it's like, okay, let's get down to business, right? You handle the business, then we go out and party, drink beer and have pretzels and all this stuff. But you have to know these things. In England was the greatest one because in England they tell me that we're too pushy. And I go, and you guys aren't, because that's your problem. Because everything is, it's all based on the language, actually. It's all really all based on the language. And we're very proactive. And a lot of the countries are more reactive, actually. It isn't done here. So I had one vice president call me once. This was another job, got fixed up. Another consultant was working with this company. I'll even tell you who the company is, Maersk Sealand. And they brought in a big consulting company, Anderson, I think it was, to do a survey of what they needed to do to improve their business, one of those. And Anderson Consulting said, you got to bring somebody in here to do sales training, but they shouldn't know anything about your business. They should know very simple and pure, flat out selling. You can sell a pencil, you can sell a nanny goat, you can sell a, whatever. This just how to sell, period. They shouldn't know anything about your business. And it's got to be somebody who can take your people, shove them over the edge of the cliff like this, and just hold on to them a little bit and get their attention and keep it. And when they did that, they looked up on the internet all that criteria. My name popped up, I guess. I don't know. So they did. They called. So that consultant said, your name popped up. So, and somebody else, by the way, actually referred you ahead of time, but we went and searched you out. So you got a chance to do this. I said, okay, cool. He said, but the vice president of sales for this worldwide shipping company would like to speak with you. I said, sure. He said, so what number you wanted to call? I gave my private consulting line. I said, you can call this number or I can call him. You tell me. He said, let him call you because he has to be in charge. This guy's a real pain in the ass, so to speak. He was Norwegian. And he said, so this guy has to be in control. I said, great. That's problem number one. I got that with getting this improved business thing going. And so he calls. He says, hi, John. He said, I hear a lot of good things. He said, you got a good, did how you do this, you do that, you work with these guys. Yeah. He said, I have a concern. I said, sure. What is it? He said, I have to make sure that this is not the American way of selling. And the first thing I said to him right there, I said, well, you have to pardon me because I don't have any idea what that is because I'm an American. I live here, so I don't know what the American way of selling is. He said, you guys are too quick, too fast. You get right to the bottom line. Okay, you don't finesse the person. You don't smooth things. You're just right there. Now let's close this deal. He said, I have to make sure that that this is not what this is. I said, got it, no problem. He said, okay. I said, so let me ask you a question. Because I'm really busy. I got a lot of people want to book me. So you got to decide right now whether you want me or not. And he said, all right, okay, yeah, I want to bring you in. I said, great, get your book, get your date book, and let's get a pen. You're not going to write these in pencil. I want you to put this in pen. And he said, okay. And he said, I just need 3 seminars. No, he says, I want one with my top managers. And if that goes well, I want 2 more. I said, great, put the dates in. Put the dates in for all 3. We can always cancel the other 2. So he puts the dates in. And I looked, but I couldn't see him. We're on the phone. I'm looking at him in my mind. I'm going, excuse me. I said, I thought the American way of selling wasn't going to work with you people. And I just waited. I didn't say anything else. And I knew he had a sense of humor at that point. He said, you son of a bitch. Called me a son of a bitch. Can you imagine this? Haven't even shaken hands yet. And I said, he said, you son of a bitch. He said, how did you do that? I said, oh, no. Nay. After the first check clears, I'll be more than happy to explain it to you. So he called me a son of a bitch again. I went and I did the 3 days. Actually, I didn't know it. I did the first day. And we went out to dinner with the consultant guy who was worried how I was going to do. And we sit down, and the first thing the guy says to me is, the first day, he says, I don't know what you think you're doing. And I thought, fuck it, I'm out of here. I'm getting fired. But that was just a phrase he's heard. He wasn't English wasn't his natural language. He said, I don't know what you think you're doing. He said, I want 30 more of these programs. He said, and the first thing I thought, I'm serious, Pollyanna. I'm almost embarrassed to say this. First thing I thought was, I don't want to work that much. Because I was already booked. I was already working in 2 other companies, plus the one company that I was finishing up with, and all that. And I said, my wife's gonna, well, she's gonna forget who I am. Right? I said, I want 30 more of these. And it ended up being 35 or 40.
Oh, wow. Good.
But that's not because of what I taught. It was only the first day. I only got a half of the day. Because the first half of the day was rah, Rita raising the company flag. Or here's our next year's 5-year plan. And I'm thinking, 5-year plan? We're in the middle of Operation Desert Storm here. You're worried about 5 years from now? You might not be here 5 years from now. But I didn't say all that. I'm thinking, But he said, if you do consulting, you'll get this when you see people one-on-one. You probably hear this I don't know what your job is, what you normally would do other times or whatever. I call it the, oh, by the way. You just get it at the end of an email, a long email. People explain all this crap to you. And then you go, oh, by the way, could I have a discount? Whatever. Okay. They should put that first. But it's the old by the way thing coming. I just wait for it to come. So he says to me at the beginning, when he first booked on the phone, okay, he said, all right, let's do this. He said, well, let me tell you something. He said, here's my problem here. I got all these countries we have to manage, and a lot of the countries don't get along with each other, but they have to communicate with each other because this and that and the other thing. And I said, okay, so why is that my problem? He said, well, if you can get them to work together during the seminar, I'd be amazed, and I would consider that to be a bonus. And I said to him, how much of a bonus? And he said, no, not like that kind of bonus. I said, he said, but I hear you're good with people, so let me see what you can do. I said, sure, no problem. And that's when I made fun of everybody the first day.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even get to teach it. You heard the story.
Yeah.
I called them all out on their rudeness and their customs and things that they think the rest of the world doesn't know about, and finally got them all. Actually, what I did was I got them all pissed off at me, but now they were all together against me.
Mm-hmm.
Then I had a coffee break. Then I opened up after the coffee break and I told them how stupid, crazy enough the Americans are. So they forgave me. And then we all got along for the rest of the week. That guy, that vice president, stayed in that seminar every day that week.
Nice.
And he stood in the back like this, stood in the back. Okay. And I thought, I guess he wants to be trained too. I don't know why. He's vice president. But the end of the seminar came and everybody's, talking to each other, swapping business cards and all this crap. And he's smiling. He's in the back going, he's smiling. And he said to me, after the end of that day, he said, this was the last day. He said, I have to tell you, I really didn't think you'd be able to pull it off. I said, pull what off? He said, this is one of the best seminars I've been to. I said, yeah, it's great information. He said, no, they didn't run out of the room on the last day. They were all talking to each other. The French were talking to the Germans were talking to the Italians are talking to the Swiss, and blah, 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 blah. He said, I never thought that would have happened. I said, okay, well, I didn't do anything on purpose. We just got them all to work together. I told him, I said, that first day. Because you told me this was a problem, and I thought I got to solve this problem before I get to the sales stuff. So you got to be able to know, you got to know, I guess you got to know strategy too. Not strategies like we do in NLP. You got to know strategy. You got to go, if this is what the problem is, what's the solution? All the other stuff falls into place. Mm-hmm. So I ended up doing seminars for them for, I think, 35 instead of 30 or 40 or something like that, whatever it was.
You are a fast thinker.
From New Jersey, you got to be a fast thinker. And people say you eat fast too. I go, yeah, well, you know what? I was raised with two sisters. Okay. And each one of them, because, this was back in the 50s and 60s, basically, each one of them had to help clean up the kitchen before they could go out and play and go meet with their friends. So you better be fast. Because they start taking your plate and you were still eating. Because they wanted to go out and play.
Yeah. It's funny.
No, it's a good part of it is really all based on experience.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Experience. Being open to really, experiencing all kinds of crazy stuff, hanging out with all different kinds of people. Mm-hmm. Things like that. Find out, and the international thing was really good because while I had international people in my neighborhood, actually, I had some Spanish, German actually came from Germany, and things like this. In my own neighborhood where I was growing up, helped out because they would explain things. They would invite you for dinner or lunch, and you look at what they're putting on the table, and you go, "What's that?" They were happy to come to my house with my parents, having spaghetti and meatballs. They were good with that. But, I'd have to go somewhere else and I'd look at this and I go, what is that called? What? Okay. All right. But they would explain everything. So, we learned back then anyway, that's what it was. You didn't stay in your house. You went outside.
Socialize. Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
No, we rode, when I think about where we rode our bicycles and came back home at 5:00 at night, how far away we ran our bicycles through, how many cities really, where I was anyway, if not cities, big towns. Mm-hmm. And nobody got kidnapped, nobody got this, nobody bothered you, nobody robbed you, nobody stole your bicycle, nothing like that, so that, and anybody can really do, they can learn that mental. To me, it's called, I think of it as mental agility.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the good thing is, like, because I've done persuasion engineering, and the one thing that I loved is being able to receive from you and from Richard all this knowledge, like all these experiences that you've had, and you guys share them, and while you're sharing them, we're learning at different levels, and we're absorbing to the point that I remember leaving that training thinking, I could sell a house right now.
Yeah.
I was like, not so sure how I'll sell my practitioner, but I feel I can sell a house. And then, like, and then think I'm putting that in, in effect and stuff, and then suddenly seeing, oh wow, I'm doing this.
Yeah. If you can imagine it, you can do it. And then so the next step is to do it.
Yeah.
You know?
I know it's a
Yeah.
great training. It's a really good training. And the next training is always in March. Is that right?
That's all. Yeah, we do that only in March.
Yeah.
Yep. We do it in March.
In Orlando.
We do that in Orlando. Yeah. Yeah. Everything we do now is in Orlando here.
Yeah. That's
we used to do seminars up north when we were living up there, but it was a different environment up there.
Mm-hmm.
So we've been coming down to Orlando. I figured that out years back. I said, New York, great city, too expensive. Too expensive. And you don't get anybody from New York to attend the seminars. Okay? Because they don't want to spend the money.
Yeah.
There's too many things for them to do. Anybody who would come to the seminars when we did them in New York City came from all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
Because they wanted to see New York City.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time. Yeah, we did some in New Jersey, of course. And then what happened was when we launched Persuasion Engineering, the book, I set it up so we launched the book, but we went to 4 cities. We went to Boston, just outside of Boston. Went to Boston, Chicago, Austin. 3 cities to start. Oh no, we went to Dallas. First time we went to Dallas, and then we did it in New York City too.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and that was great. So they all did well, and I picked those cities for a specific reason. And then I thought, well, I'm not going to travel all those cities to do this other seminars just like this. And then I thought, well, let's go to what's the hottest city at that time? I forget the year. What's the hottest city where people want to just go? And it was Orlando.
Mm-hmm.
So we came down to Orlando and started that. And then we still lived in New Jersey, so we were traveling back and forth from New Jersey to Orlando. And then we decided we'd just move down. Of course, my granddaughter, when she was born, helped us make that decision. Rio.
Yes. How old is she now? She just had her birthday.
She was 5 the other day.
Oh.
Oh yeah, she's crazy. She's crazy. She's fencing. She's taking fencing lessons.
That's beautiful.
Yes.
And she is, because your son also learned NLP, so since very young age.
My son came to the seminars we were doing, and would sit in the back of the room playing with his toys and stuff. And then we brought him to we brought him to Australia once. And then we went on a tour with Richard. We went to Germany, Austria, and then the UK. So he was out of school for 2 or 3 months. I forget how many months. And we brought him with us. And so Richard would tutor him.
Oh, that's amazing.
Oh no, it was crazy. It was really crazy. I'm looking for my son once. I'm on stage teaching, and I gave the class it's something to do, break, whatever. I'm looking around where he is, and I don't see him. I see Kathleen in the back, and I'm like, she goes, under the table. He was under the table with Richard in the back of the seminar room because he was having a problem with math.
Oh.
So Richard decided to teach him how to do math the shortcut way.
Yeah.
And he taught John math.
Nice.
Oh yeah. And we had a tutor. Well, we had a tutor for him, so and we had a girl actually. He must have been 9 or 10 at the time. So he was happy to have a girl dragging him around Germany, to the museums and all these kind of things. And she was really good though. She was really cool. So, but he learned just by being there, by being in the room.
Yeah, so young. Yeah.
Plus, he'd watch videotapes,
Mhm.
seminar videotapes of Richard and stuff. So, yeah, I remember when because he's been a trainer. He was a trainer when he was, I think, 13.
Wow.
I
Yeah.
didn't make him a trainer. Let me be clear. I did not do that. Okay.
Who made him a trainer?
Richard.
Wow. Yeah.
He got up on stage. Well, he'd been to all the seminars. He did a master prac a few times. He was with us, all of us, He gets up to do a thing for the trainer training because he says, can I get to the presentation? I said, well, I don't know, John, you got to nest loops and you got to do a little of this and a lot. He said, yeah. Well, he did. He did. And Richard said to me, make him a trainer. I said, wait a minute, hold on. Provisional trainer. Provisional. Everybody's getting a provisional trainer. He goes, no. Give him a trainer. He captivated the entire audience.
Wow.
and had their attention, and did what he did. I probably have it on a vid. I definitely got it on a video. I must have it somewhere. I don't know. So, yeah.
That's so great to be able to have your kid, grow learning neuro-linguistic programming since a child and now real as well, I imagine, right?
Well, she's not in the seminar room. She's still a little young, really, and we don't want everybody, Plus, she wants to be on stage. So if she was in the seminar room during the seminar, she'd want to go up on the stage.
Mm-hmm.
So there'll be time for her. But we didn't teach, like I said, we didn't teach that to John.
He just absorbed it because of being there.
Yeah. Plus in the house.
Yes.
I tell people, the one thing people say to me that drives me crazy, they go, well, I use my NLP in my job, but I don't use it at home. I go, it's about how your brain works. How can you separate that body of knowledge and skills?
Mm-hmm.
That you're not going to do it. You're not going to use it here, but you're going to choose to use it here. That doesn't make absolutely no sense to me.
Yeah.
No, I had a friend of mine. This guy, I would have made this guy a trainer in a heartbeat if he studied anything with NLP. He was a minority. He was a teacher. And he decided one time that in the city of Patterson, New Jersey, and he went to the businesses up and down around the block and everything, and said, $100 a month. They go, you're shaking me down? He goes, yeah. I'm taking a storefront and I'm going to open up something for the kids so they have a place to go after school because their parents don't get off work till 6 or 7 at night.
Mm-hmm.
And they kicked in money. Okay. His name was John too, another John. So he told me, I said, what are you doing down there? Anyways, this, that, the other thing. I said, no kidding. I said, you know what? I can send some of my practitioners basically down there, see if they can get rapport with these kids and teach them a little something, goal setting, some modalities, teach them they can actually control their brain, all these things. Mm-hmm. And he said, that's a great idea. So I did. I started bringing, some of them down there. I go down there one time. What's he doing? He's shooting pool with the kids. He got the kids shooting pool. And I said to John, I know he had pinball machines, he had TV, but he's shooting pool with the kids. I said, John, you're in charge of this thing. You're shooting pool with the kids. I mean, I got to ask you a question. I mean, does that seem like something to teach these 12, 13-year-old kids from the street? He said, oh, I get it. He said, you forgot, I'm a math teacher. I said, yeah. He said, geometry and physics.
Mm-hmm.
I said, you're kidding. He said, no, come on, watch these kids. I teach them, you got to get the right angle. You got to hit it just right. Yada, yada, yada. Mm-hmm. He said, I'm teaching them. This is because they go, what are we going to do with arithmetic? They go, arithmetic. He says, I'm going to teach you. So we're going to do up a shoot. I go in there one day, they're rolling dice for potato chips. Okay. I said, John, what are you doing? Teaching these kids how to gamble. He said, for potato chips. I said, John. He said, oh, I know. I'm teaching them about odds. Mm. And they also have to add. When they see the numbers, they got to do real quick.
Fast, yeah.
That right. So I said, oh man, this guy was so cool. Really, it was so cool. So he was teaching these kids to do those things without teaching them as if they were in a classroom.
Mm-hmm.
See, that's
Yeah.
NLP.
It is.
That's one of the best ways to get it
Yes.
across to the kids.
That's
So
great. And we have just recently, or well, this is the year that we are celebrating the 50 years of NLP, or 50 years of the publication of the book, right? Is that
right,
what we're
right.
celebrating of the first
Yeah.
book? And
First book.
and we recently had this celebration with John Grinder and Dr. Bandler, where you, as the president of the Society of NLP, and Michael Carroll from the
Right,
NLP Academy, right?
right,
You guys were interviewing your
right.
respective, and so when you think about that, how did you guys put that together, and what was it that you decided to put?
He and I talked about it. I don't know, probably could be 20 years ago,
Oh,
maybe 10, 15 years ago. I mean, I got to remember the year. I was doing trainings in London. I was doing another different training in London. I was still doing NLP, but not with the big company that was there at the time. And he tapped me. He got a hold of my number somehow, or emailed me first, whatever, and said, "Hey, I'm in town. Do you want to get together and have lunch?" I said, "Sure." And we met. We had coffee and had lunch, whatever. And we were laughing about some things because I said to him, everybody says the same thing. It's a shame John and Richard didn't stay together. And I go, well, they weren't going to stay together. I mean, this is typical. They're they're two very different people, and they both served each other's purposes. So it doesn't surprise me they didn't stay together after a while. And so, but he and I were talking and saying, and I said, too bad these guys had to get a divorce. They could have gone to marriage counseling, stayed together a little longer. And he says, yeah, that never going to happen. And both of them stubborn, by the way. I mean, they're just, both of them are, so, but I just looked at him. I looked at Michael and I said, I got an idea. I don't know where, but I got an idea. What do you think would happen if we got them to get together one more time, like the Beatles kind of thing, and did it? And it's either going to be in Madison Square Garden in New York City, or it's going to be here at Wimbledon, at the stadium. And he said, "Oh, wow." And we from time to time, we talk, and we stayed together on a lot of things actually over the years, Michael and I. And then the 50-year thing was popping up, And he tapped me. He goes, "Hey, no, the 50-year thing is like, it was like probably last year, like next year, the release of the structure book, Structure Magic 1."
Mm-hmm.
And I said, "Okay." He said, "So they were able to do something." I said, "Well, okay, if we can get the two guys to say, yeah, that'd be great." Of course, I didn't have direct access to John, although I actually did have his email address once, because he emailed me once a long time ago to thank me for something. And of course, I see Richard every day in my mind, at least, if not on the phone 2 or 3 times a week, that kind of thing, And so I said, well, put together what you think, Let me see what you think, how we could pull it off, yada, 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 blah, blah, blah. And now we're going to pass Richard, you want to pass John. And they both said, sure.
Awesome.
Yeah. That was the other day. Of course, we're working on the video at the moment because there were some technical difficulties in the beginning.
It's okay.
Yeah, I know. Well, lesson learned. What can I say?
Lessons learned. But that means that maybe there can be a second time.
That's exactly right. Yeah, I said that immediately. What I said. I said that immediately. If it went well the first time, then maybe they'll want to do something a second time, and maybe it could be Madison Square Garden.
Yeah.
Or Wimbledon. Wembley Stadium, I should say, Wembley.
That would be amazing. Yes. No, thank you
Well,
so much for putting all this together. I mean, I was part of the crowd there waiting eagerly. We didn't care there was technical difficulties.
yeah,
We were going to stay there no
yeah,
matter what.
yeah. Well, yeah, I got bounced offline, I don't know, 6 or 8 times myself.
That's okay.
But yeah, it was just, we could have done it differently.
Yeah,
The technical part.
yeah,
But I got
that's
to tell you that the guys they were fantastic. Both of them. They were very
yes.
great. They were gracious, complimentary to each other.
Yeah.
And Richard's always spoke highly of John in the seminars,
Mm-hmm.
and John's always spoke highly of Richard in his seminars. They both have two different talents.
Mm-hmm.
And they had a good time when they first started out doing crazy things. Experimenting, and because Richard started out doing an experimental hypnosis class. What happened? He saw Virginia do that thing, and then it was Fritz, of course, and then of course they got tied up with Milton Erickson. So they were trying all kinds of. Let's see. I wonder if you can do this with hypnosis. I wasn't around that early, but I kind of wish I was. And then maybe I'm happy I wasn't.
All of us wish we were, but no, it's great.
Well, think about it. What those two guys did was they took the best of what works and put it all together into one technology called neuro-linguistic programming.
Yes.
And nobody else on the planet has done that.
That's true.
No one. That's it. Those two.
And it was, and they were so young, and in 10 years, the space of 10 years, I didn't know they wrote 9 books. I mean, that is super
They wrote a lot of books. They wrote a lot of. There was a lot of scripts. There was a lot of this and a lot of this and a lot of keeping notes and all these things. And and they had a compiler because Richard was a computer programmer. That got to be a little easy, I guess, to figure out. And John was super because he had all the linguistic stuff. Richard would see watch someone do something, and then duplicate that to see how it would work in his own style. And then John would be able to take it and put it into language. The amazing thing about Richard back then, it's not much better these days, is that he could do incredible things, could not explain to you how he did it. He just couldn't explain how to do it. But John could. I mean, that's basically what happened. So what John heard about what Richard was doing, John went and sat in one of Richard's classes and told Richard, he said, can you teach this? Can you teach me this? Richard goes, no, he'd see Richard do things. And he'd go, can you teach that? And I think Richard said, I don't know. I can do it. I don't know if I can teach it. John said, I can, if I work with you, stay with you, I can codify it and get it into books. And then they ended up doing seminars together. Anyway, because John and Richard had some very similar understanding things that they actually did agree on. Now they wanted to find more of the magic keys. So.
And from what they said, was there anything that you were like, oh, I didn't know this, or everything that they said something that you knew already, or was there something new that you were like, oh, that's interesting, I didn't know this thing?
There was only a couple of times with Michael would ask John something about something, and John said, I never said that. So, but that's just a demonstration, by the way, of how things get translated and changed. The old telephone game thing.
Yeah.
And John said, "Well, I don't remember saying that. I don't. That's not something. I didn't say that. It's not something I would say anyway." So, but I remember listening to a long time ago. I remember listening to a lot of cassette tapes of John. And yes, he was very professorial. Very knowledgeable, with the language and the whole thing. So,
and you like that? You gravitate towards grammar, right? You were saying that.
Oh yeah. Well, I did like. I told you I tried to get to see him in New York twice. if I would have, and that was right around the same time, maybe I already knew Richard, but I can't remember what the years were. Where, I mean, it could have been I could have ended up with John because I wanted to see both of them. I read the book. I read enough of the books, and I said, I got to meet these guys.
Yeah.
But I couldn't get to John. I was able to get to Richard, and I enjoyed Richard. Matter of fact, when I started learning NLP, it wasn't with Richard himself. It was with some other people. They're his trainers, actually, some of his trainers. And I was like, I got to remember this. I got to remember that. This is a lot of work. I don't know about this, that kind of thing. Until I saw Richard go to work. I went, oh my God, it's a lot easier. I was making it so difficult. It's much easier than I thought. So.
And so from, like you've been nearly, all these years with Richard and, learning all this, using it. You are Mr. Application. You're all the time. NLP all the time, applications, both in business, at home, everywhere. And you're the president of the Society of NLP, and thinking towards the future, is there any vision that you have for neuro-linguistic programming, as you're kind of like the gatekeeper from being president of the society? What
we're going to keep it going. I'm not planning on going anywhere.
Yeah. So where do you see it going? Somewhere in a different way, or in a, I don't know.
I think well, now we're adding some things in now about neurochemistry.
Oh yeah.
We've been adding those things in since 1992.
Yes.
But not to the degree we're doing it now, because people when they hear neurochemistry, their brain goes boo, right? Or what is this now? I thought this was neuro-linguistic programming. That's right, neuro. So we're adding, so we're putting some stuff in that direction, and a lot of people are doing neuro stuff these days. I don't know how valid a lot of it is that they're teaching, but we want to move more into doing some of that. Like, people ought to understand that we're a chemical. Like, the way I explain it, we're a biochemical machine. I mean, not necessarily a machine, but I mean, I refer to it that way. To the simple way where you can set the buttons, push the buttons, watch the behavior. Okay, you got to make sure the batteries are charged. You got to make sure everything's working, all that kind of stuff. I think that I can see a downfall where NLP is not going to be as respected as it should be because of AI. It's no big secret I'm not fond of AI for a lot of different reasons. It has its applications, it has its place, but it's also got its dangers. So, when at least a lot of these problems are coming to the surface. When somebody gets in touch with one of these online robot therapists, and they start telling them I'm depressed, and they go, well, have you considered suicide? Or whatever the hell they did. This is not good. This is not good. So, and people ask me all the time, and I'm going to keep saying it anyway. They go, well, NLP's dead. I actually put a thing up on the internet one day. I went to a cemetery and took some pictures, and I said, I've heard NLP's dead. I'm looking around here. I don't see NLP on any of the gravestones. It'll be dead when we stop using our language.
Exactly.
I can't explain it any other way. If you can get your point across with your mouth shut and don't move your body like you're sitting there stiff, I'll think about it. But maybe it's dead. Maybe it's going to be dead. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And and people go, oh, I got to come up with something new. No, you came up with a new technique. Because there's the skills, understanding how the brain works, all that stuff, all the language things, some modalities, all those things, and then making combinations called techniques, right? So you could have you could take all of the base technology, and you can mix it up, take some of the skills, do this and that, on how to how to help your chickens like better eggs, right? You know what I'm saying? That kind of crazy thing, right? And you call it the Pollyanna better eggs with chickens technique. But it's still the base technology. That's not going to change.
Yeah.
Combinations of that, my son, when he was little, he was 4. He woke up one time and he was in a sweat, actually. And he woke up in a sweat, and Kathleen, and he was cranky when he woke up. And Kathleen went in there and said, "Everything okay? You okay?" And he said, yeah, I'm okay. Now, here's a kid, he wasn't doing seminars with us yet. He might have been 3. You can ask Kathleen when you see her. She's better than me, by the way, all of this stuff. I'm serious. I know people think I'm joking when I'm not. I'm really not joking. And she said, "What happened?" He said, "I had a bad dream." I said, she said, "Oh, okay. But you're okay now?" He said, "Yeah." She goes, "What did you do?" He says, "I made it go backwards." Now, he wasn't doing seminars and stuff. He said, I took it and ran it back, and made it go backwards.
Nice.
And she's like, "Oh." Now, I mean, I have a certain amount of a belief in the collective unconscious or conscious stuff out there. So I mean, it could be a number of different ways it landed in his head, for all I know. But we weren't teaching. He wasn't coming to classes at that time. We didn't start bringing him to classes. I think the first time he actually came to a class, it might have been 4. But this was before that. Well, because we were going to California, and my parents couldn't watch him, and her parents couldn't watch him. So I said, "We'll take him with us." What the hell? The best part was we were outside of Myanmar, the jet place. Watched the jets take off in San Diego. But he was only 4. That was the first time he really came to a seminar. So I don't know. I mean, NLP is going to be around for a long time. I don't know if we called NLP. I don't know. I mean, we're doing the very best we can to keep the legacies there.
Exactly.
Yeah. And Michael and I have been spearheaded this, keeping things together up till now. Anyway, so who knows? We still support each other. We've had people. Sometimes some people come to the seminars and they go, "Well, I'm a trainer with Grinder." I go, "Okay. So what do you want? What can I come to the seminar?" I said, "Sure, but you can't do this and you can't do that. I'm not making you a trainer with me. Forget about it." But some people they still manage to make that happen. But I'm thinking, well, listen, I wanted to see John, and I end up being with Richard. Would I still go to see John today? I don't know. I don't know if I would now. I did enjoy him. Yeah, with that 50th anniversary day, I really did. I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed his talk, or answering his questions anyway. But NLP, I mean, where's it going? I don't know. People go, "Where's NLP going?" I like Richard's answer. Well, NLP is not a thing. It's a thing. It's not a person. What do you mean, where's it going? What's the future of NLP? Well, it's up to everybody else. It's up to us. What are we going to do?
This angle of neuroscience that you guys are, going forward with, it's interesting how it's kind of like science is catching up to what you've been doing for so long.
Well,
right?
Yeah, neuroscience has been around forever, really. I mean, for a long, long time. But now they're learning application.
Yeah.
Now they're learning. Oh, hold on a second. I know they think our country's crazy. It might be. Now when they come out and said the other day, for example, see this is good research going on, but it's how it's presented that it needs to. My government needs to get NLP trained so they can learn how to communicate more clearly. We just put it that way. That'd be a lot better. When Secretary Kennedy comes out and said, "We found the problem with autism. It's caused by Tylenol." I'm thinking, there's going to be a problem now. Well, some research just came out that said it's not the cause, but it certainly could be a contributor because of the women using it when they're pregnant. Because if you read the back of the fucking box, it says, do not use for more than 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And take the correct dose. Okay? So, and that's all medication.
Yeah.
So, but if something, so I guess, and what I'm saying is now, but people's eyes are being opened up differently now. Their eyes and ears, you know? And unfortunately, even with this guy who got shot, Kirk, I'm thinking that what a tragedy, really. That is unforgivable. But it has opened a lot of minds about about a lot of things. I'm not saying he was a saint, by the way. I wouldn't canonize this guy.
Mm-hmm.
There's other things, there's all kind of stuff, but nobody's a saint, that kind of thing. But he was able to communicate in a way that got I'm more right now. I am more positive about the upcoming generations than I was, because now they're at least doing research, asking questions, getting information. They're not happy just having stuff jammed in their head.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of things going on right now, a lot of movement. Some of it's not so good, but it's waking a lot of people up, which I think is a good thing.
Asking questions, I always remember when you told me you have to ask the right questions. That's true.
You got
That's
to ask the right questions.
important. Yeah, that's the important thing. And yeah.
So,
And so we're getting now to the end, but I wanted to make sure that our audience, that our listeners, if they want to get in touch with you and they want to get training from the Society of NLP, where should they go? How can they find you?
there's a couple of things. One is, our website. We run all the websites for us and Richard. Richard's website is, of course, richardbandler.com.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Our main website is purenlp.com. And there's schedules up there and all that stuff. The society is they can look for other trainers in their areas if they're society trainers, with us. And that would be the society-of-nlp.net.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And they can go do a search for people in their country. Because the one thing I know that really, really bothers me a lot actually is it's been watered down so much in so many places, and a lot of it is so inaccurate.
Yes.
We taught for years, the meta model stuff, So, but I saw a book, somebody else's training manual, where the question, they said, here's how you use the meta model. Someone would say, I'm depressed. And they go, what are you depressed about? I'm thinking, that's not the right question. That's a stupid question. What do you want to know that for anyway? And there's a lot of different ways you can ask what the right question to move them out of that, right? And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, this is not good.
Yeah.
So
that's why it's so important to preserve it, right? To preserve this legacy that we know. I mean, I heard it right on Saturday. They were saying how the meta model is the most impressive thing we've created. It's a problem solving machine.
I think about it in different ways. Sometimes I got to use metaphors for people,
mm-hmm.
especially in companies or corporations, whatever the case is. The basis of NLP, to me, can't change, can't be ignored. It goes back to the Magna Carta being the basics of how law started.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and when because different countries have different laws and craziness, they all got to somehow apply to the Magna Carta. Okay, but the other thing is when people say, the Supreme Court said blah blah blah, that's so wrong. I go, excuse me. If you want to understand this, like NLP, read the Constitution and understand the Constitution. It's not that difficult, and it's not even that big. So you can understand how that was applied. Now, if you learn the essence of the NLP skills, you'll be amazed what you can do, especially if you meta model yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Like you say something and you go, oh, how did I manage to ask that question and then go back in there and go fix it up and do it differently the next time? I mean, you can apply some of it to yourself.
Yeah.
It's not impossible. So I started looking for other ways of describing a metaphor. There's essence of learning a musical instrument. Okay, anything in a musical instrument is going to be called rudimentary.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't change. You want to learn to play the piano? You're going to learn arpeggios.
Yeah.
Right? No, yeah, you're going to learn exactly how to place your fingers, and your teacher's going to crack your knuckles if you don't place them just right. But once you can do that, you can play anything, any music on the piano, right?
Yes.
All kind of stuff. That's what I'm saying. So I look at NLP as being the same thing. It's not going anyplace. It can't.
No. Skills. Yeah. Well,
we'll be in trouble.
Yeah. Well, thank you, John. It was great. And I'm looking forward to the next trainings that are happening in March and then in July also with you and Dr. Bandler and Kathleen.
Yeah, come see us.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, that'll be great. And we will put all these links in the description of the YouTube so everybody can have it and they'll find it. Yes, absolutely.
You guys do a lot of work. You guys do a lot of work out there and get stuff done.
Yes.
Really.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, and so the next thing I want to say is that we probably will use the information from this moment here with you to build up an ebook that we will also make it available. So that's something that we are also looking forward to doing. And well, thank you so much. Thank you.
Now I got to come up with all new stories for the seminars because people will come to the seminars and go, I heard that before. But I missed the point.
Exactly. I like that.
All right. Well, thank you so much. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you. Yes. Thank you.